Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast.
This is episode 244. This week, we have our election reflection, Duncan taking jabs on his way out the door, passing the gavel, and the power carousel in the Senate. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in the endeavor, writer, journalist, dog mom, and owner of the GeorgiaVirtue.com, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hi, I unfortunately already think you're wrong about something. I don't think Jeff Duncan's on his way out the door, but... Anyway, how was your vacation?
It was good. We went west. We flew into Reno, down to Carson City for a couple days, found some hot springs, and hung out in the hot springs for a couple hours. And it was neat because it's not something we have around here. It's not even something they advertise. I just saw sitting in a restaurant, just people walking with like beach towels and stuff. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? It's 45 degrees outside.
Was it snowing there? Was it cold? I mean, 45 doesn't always feel as cold as it does.
Well, it is dry, but yeah, it snowed one good day. We were there. We got I don't even know how much snow we got. Up the upper elevations, there was snow all around. We went around Lake Tahoe and up to Virginia City. There was snow around, but it's not like the roads were icy or anything.
Yeah, well, they actually know what they're doing out there too.
They do. Even private snow plows and stuff are around, especially going up to the ski resorts and stuff. Each resort keeps their own plows, because if customers can't get to the ticket office, they can't buy lift tickets. So
money.
Yeah, and there aren't a lot of people driving big trucks.
Right.
So a lot of all-wheel drive stuff. But yeah, I went up to Virginia City because I'm a nerd. And it's mostly a tourist trap, but it was all right. And on the way back, got a picture outside the Moonlight Bunny Ranch. Mm. I obviously knew it existed. I didn't know where it was.
Right.
And it's just, we got outside of Carson, and I started seeing signs. I'm like, that's the Moonlight Bunny Ranch. And there's another one that says the loosest slots in town, no judgment. And there's another establishment of ill repute. And there's a handful of them out there. I just did not go in, but got a picture outside of it.
Was it what you thought it would look like on the outside?
Yeah, look like a place where you'd go and pick up a lady by the hour. I mean, it's certainly not like a nice nice hotel or anything. But we had a really good time. Thursday, I got a chance to meet up with a friend who I haven't seen in a couple decades. We were in the Army together, and I was like, "Man, Chase, don't you live in Reno?" Yeah. So we got together for a few hours on I think Thursday.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's absolutely cool, man. It's been 25 years since I've seen him. I mean, obviously, Facebook changes a lot of that. I mean, I see pictures of his kids. His kids are now grown, and some of the age now where all my buddies have grown kids. But no, it was really good to see him, and it was like 25. It was like time never passed. It's one of those things. But it just happened to be, I didn't. Sorry if you're listening, Chase. I didn't plan the vacation around getting out to see you, but once I figured out that's where we were going, like, hey, doesn't Chase live here? No, but yeah, it was cool. The only sad thing I saw, they were giving away a free buffet lunch to veterans. And every day around lunchtime, this line looked like it was a mile long of people waiting to get their free lunch. I'm like, man, I'm not doing that. It's nice that they're doing it. It's just I don't see myself as the old man with the Army veteran hat waiting 2 hours to get to a buffet lunch because it's free.
Yeah. Well, at least the actual old man with the hat got
Yeah. Oh yeah, they all. I think that they probably had a pretty good time in line talking to each other and stuff. So it was like a meeting of the VFW, just standing in line. What about you? How are things down in South Georgia last week?
Oh, it's fine. We survived yet another tropical storm. Places down here canceling school like it's nobody's business, and then it just rains, and then they're like, "Oh, lucky we were spared." Well, yeah, the forecast said we were going to be spared, you fools.
They are so gun shy of that stuff now. I never really signed on to it. As far as why don't you wait and see what the conditions are?
Why don't you
I
just
guess
let parents make the decisions that are best for their families and then not have these asinine policies for truancy, and then it's really not that big of a deal.
the truancy laws are about money. Everything always is. They don't. They institutionally, they don't care about truancy. But they do care about those federal dollars they get for having students' cheeks and seats.
Well, of course they don't care about truancy, because when it comes down to it, like on this stuff, they're canceling school.
There's something to do with that. With if you can't, it was the same thing that got all the kids stuck in that snow, in that foot of snow we had, or the I can't remember which one it was, the ice. Once they got them in school, they wanted to get that half day. The half day is the magic line that if you get a half day in, you get credit for a full day of school. And that's how we ended up with kids being stuck on school buses for 20 hours in a snowstorm, because these districts held out and held out and held out to just try to get them to half days, to get that half day in, and that is purely financial. But there's a bank of time they have for weather, and they can use that. I guess from a parent's perspective, it's nice to know the day before that you're going to have to find childcare for your kid. But again, if you're a responsible parent, you have that plan B already in place.
Well, and even if you're not the responsible parent, if those options aren't there for you, you don't have them no matter what.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. But that seems pretty silly with a tropical storm coming in to cancel school like that. I know my sister's in Ocala, and I don't even think their lights even blinked. They with every storm, they get branches knocked off of trees and stuff like that. They have to go clean up. But it was not a major event that we saw on the west coast of Florida a month and a half ago.
Right. That most people have already forgotten about.
Yeah, and that was a major event that people ignored because they thought it was going up to Tampa, and it didn't. And there were people stuck on the islands and stuff with collapsed bridges. So I don't know. I know there's no winning as when you're one of these executives, elected executives like that. The only winning is getting rid of public school and let the private schools do what they do.
Well, it's just so messed up that people think they have to be like told to do something before they can do it. Like you have to be told to evacuate, or you have to be told to keep your kids home or whatever. Like, just if you are like super antsy or you're not getting a good feeling about it, like make decisions. If you feel like it's okay, then keep going.
Well, I think I told the story before, but same storm. I was one of the neighbors asked me to go get her daughter from school because I had a 4-wheel drive. So I said, yeah, hop on in. We'll go get her. So we did that, and I was coming back, and I was noticing all the snow and ice on the roads. And I've been in Georgia long enough to recognize the difference between a dusting and sticking on the road. So I called Connie. I said, she was working at Buckhead at the time. I said, you need to get out now. There's going to be no getting out. We're waiting for so-and-so to get out of a meeting, the president. You need to go. Someone needs to make a decision right now and close your doors and get out right now. Didn't listen to me. Then who has a 10-hour commute home? Because they waited for the president to get out of a meeting to clear with him, like yeah, this is going to be awful.
Right.
And there was an employee there that got stuck at work. It's not the worst place to be stuck. I mean, I
think I'd rather be stuck at work than in my car.
Well, they also had a full bar at this office. higher end finance. Yeah, if a client comes in and wants a drink, you make him a damn drink.
Yeah.
But I think he was stuck for 2 days there. But anyway,
Dang.
I think he had a small car, and it was one of those things where you're in Buckhead. Any of the restaurants that are open, you can walk to. I mean, it's not like it wasn't an uncomfortable place to be. Versus driving like out to Cumming or whatever and that crap. So we have the election results.
Just
Kemp,
as I suspected.
Yeah, Kemp took Abrams out to the woodshed. He didn't pull DeSantis. DeSantis absolutely whooped Charlie Crist's butt. I mean, by almost 20 points. But the Abrams thing, it was, we were talking before the show, it was palpable that other candidates were pulling back from Abrams as we were getting closer and closer to Election Day. I think fewer dollars were flying into Abrams' war chest, and people started to recognize that this isn't going to happen. Yeah, this is a bad investment.
Legit imploding before Election Day even came. I mean, in 2018, Kemp never polled that much higher than her. Never.
Her media was crap. Her messaging was crap. When she started the race off attacking Kemp, she was attacking him on opening schools, and even when that happens, like, ooh, that's not good. You know, you can't when you insult somebody over a plus, it's really hard to do. So the only she had left to fall back on was abortion, and that law's already passed.
I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but Kemp also had a ton of money to give away to people who might not have otherwise given him the time of day. Thanks to
teachers, state employees,
COVID funds. Yeah, I mean, police officers, just TANF recipients, EBT recipients, like that cash incentive, economic incentive, or whatever. I mean, there was just so much money to go around where, you know, he got to get on their radar as, oh, this guy's not so bad. And he could do it under the guise of COVID without...
I really hope that's not the takeaway.
Of course it is.
Buying votes with... I'd rather say that Kemp ran a better campaign. He had a better story to tell. That's why I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say he ran a better campaign, better media, with a better story, having done a better job than she professed that she would do had she been governor.
Of course. And as it pertains to COVID, I mean, that's absolutely true. But, I mean, like, people remember that he opened the state and opened the country, but they also know he gave a lot of free stuff.
Yeah. The New York Times was not... media has not been kind to Stacey Abrams. And her second bid for governor, Stacey Abrams, was dogged by complaints that she was distracted by her national ambitions and disconnected from voters at home.
And that, I think, is true. I mean...
That was one of the more effective ads that ran against Abrams, was her on The View saying that she would absolutely want to run for the White House.
And they said that, you know, she spent all her time when she was doing her fair fight and election town stuff outside the state of Georgia for the last 2 years. And I think it showed.
Yeah, I mean, she thought that she had a base with identity politics. We'll get to more of that in a minute. But she thought that she had a solid base who would never abandon her. But you put a story out on the Georgia Virtue, showed how many people voted in that race and then didn't vote down the card. It's people were charged to.
They were, totally. They were there. There were plenty of people who were there for Kemp.
Yeah, and I know people who skipped several races. They were there to vote in the gubernatorial and then for some local stuff, and that was it. And skip the rest of the ballot. And I know people don't realize that they can do that. You don't have to vote in a race that you don't want to. If you don't like your options, you don't have to take one of the three. And I never felt she had any traction. In 2018, something totally different. It was a knockdown, drag out fight with the shotgun ad and the pickup truck ad and all that stuff, which I didn't think was particularly good media, but I thought the shotgun ad was cute.
That was in the primary, though, wasn't it?
Probably. They tried to hammer him on it. It was a double barrel shotgun with the breech open. I mean, anyway, but it was a cute ad, but I guess it was effective. I mean, he landed on the job, but I just never felt like she had any traction in this race at all. I don't think any of her hits ever landed. And it just felt like, if you're using the fighter analogy, she was flailing in the ring, just kind of hoping that he'd walk into one of her haymakers, and he didn't.
And I mean, I didn't anticipate Democrats really dominating especially in rural Southeast Georgia where they've been reliably red counties, but she just underperformed. Even where Herschel won, she did so much worse than Warnock.
Well, she came off like Loeffler. After spending all that much time in New York and California, she came back unrelatable. She wasn't the girl that left. And you look at Abrams' resume, and her resume is very impressive with her education and all that stuff. She's got a great story to tell. And she couldn't get it out. She just became unrelatable. Sort of like Loeffler, where it didn't matter if she wore a hat to look poor or whatever. She just never was able to make that personal connection with voters. She was aloof. And I think Abrams this time around really came off being aloof and elitist.
Which I don't think is something she ever anticipated. Obviously, she didn't.
And someone who doesn't come across aloof is Warnock. We got Herschel and Raphael Warnock going to a runoff as we predicted. The choices were so bad that people skipped the race. And this was the story I was alluding to earlier that you showed people who voted for the governor's race and the people who just either, I think Chase Oliver only polled 2.5 or 3%. It was relatively low. And yes, if you gave that directly to one candidate or the other, there wouldn't be a runoff. But we have seen in polling again and again and again that the Libertarian Party does not poll from one side or the other.
Right.
Both sides want to point at the other guy and say, point at the Libertarians and say, you stole votes from me. Both sides do that. We had top of the ticket, we had two prominent Libertarians, one in Shane Hazel and one in Chase Oliver. And Shane spent no money. Shane doesn't collect money. I mean, he runs to get the message out. And neither one of them could convince 50% of the plus one of the population of Georgia that they earned a spot in the Senate.
Yeah, as much as Stacey underperformed compared to Warnock, I mean, Herschel was equally as poor. I think there was only one county down here where people voted for Kemp and there was no drop off to the Senate race. But I mean, it's almost unheard of for a top of the, it usually gets lower as you go down, people don't finish the ballot. But for people to straight up skip the race at the top with names they know and skip it completely and then go to the governor's race and then continue is huge. And then for them to also, I pulled the data on a lot of the counties where down by me just because it would take forever to do the whole state because we have 159 freaking counties. But the number of people who had to have voted for another political party, either a Libertarian or a Democrat, and then voted for Kemp, in some counties, it was 8-9%.
Yeah, huge numbers of people who simply walked on that race. They just decided, screw it, I'm out. Turnout's going to be key in this runoff. December 6th, I think. Mm-hmm. Day before Pearl Harbor. It's going to be interesting to see because Warnock is so well organized, so well funded, and comes off so personably. On the other side, runoffs tend to go to challengers.
Yeah,
because the opposition tends to coalesce behind the challenger. But Walker is such a horrible candidate. The fact that he didn't, completely embarrass himself on the debate stage was impressive because, again, that's not his arena. That's not what he's practiced at doing.
Warnock's been blistering him on that stuff too. I mean, he's been saying he claims he has solutions, but he won't share them because he said he's concerned that someone else will take them. And I'm out here telling you what I want to do or what I will do or what I have done, and you can't. I mean, you can dislike Warnock all day long, but it's pretty
good. I'd have to see the direct quote from Walker on that one, but the idea that I'm not going to let you copy off of my paper when you're trying to do something, when you claim you're doing something good for the state and for the country, and you say, well, you can't copy off my paper. Well, my values don't change. My belief in small government and low taxes don't change. So if you want to copy off my paper and say, we need to get rid of income tax, this, and this, I'm not hiding. There's no reason for me to hide my solutions.
Well, it's not supposed to matter who gets credit either.
Right. I don't care who. If I draft a piece of legislation up to get rid of the income tax in Georgia, which I think is absolutely achievable, if I draw that up, I don't care whose name goes on it.
Well, it's just we saw this with constitutional carry in Georgia. How many years did
it get squashed by Ralston because it came from somebody who is not in his good graces?
Right. I mean, year after year, it was introduced by multiple people. And then last year, they're like, hey, by the way, we're going to push constitutional carry.
It also happened to be an election year for the governor.
Well, sure. And he saved it for election year. But I'm just saying, we've witnessed that. And it doesn't matter who gets the credit because the end goal is constitutional carry.
Yeah, I don't care whose name is on there. If we want a nationwide constitutional carry, I wouldn't care. Taking Marjorie Greene's name off of it may help it get through, something like that. Where and most politicians I know, when I've been in smoky rooms with them and things like that, will tell a candidate, "I will help you the best way I can, even if the biggest help is me not helping." Because a lot of these guys know that they're lightning rods. So if you want me to stand here and endorse you, happy to do it. If you want me to stay out of it, happy to do it. Because folks that get negative press know they're getting negative press, and the smarter people that are around politics understand that and understand sometimes no help is more help.
Yeah.
You ever try to move a piece of furniture with somebody?
I need to do it myself.
Yeah. At some point, I'm just like, stop helping. Just stop. It's easier for me to do it myself. Stop helping.
Man.
I'm of course I'm interested to see what happens. Some of the fire may come out of this even by the time the show drops, and we're recording late Saturday. I got back late last night, so we're pushing Eric to his limits, and I know I'm pushing you to your limits because you've been up working all day. The Nevada results are not in as far as the Senate goes. If it comes down to Walker being vote 49 or 50, that's going to take some of the wind out of his sails. The urgency to say we've got to get anybody with an R after his name, have to get him in office. At this point, the best thing you can say about Herschel is he will be a rubber stamp for the Republican Party. He hasn't. I know, but he hasn't presented any solutions. He talks, but he doesn't talk. And I know that's usually good in politics, but there's no. What we were missing in this was We're missing 1994 here, with a contract with America when Newt Gingrich came in, where he stood up and said, "You make me speaker. This is what I want to get accomplished." And he wrote it down and put it out. I say he wrote it down and put it out in the papers, put it out nationwide. You elect Republicans this cycle, this is what we're going to do. And we didn't have that mandate. So I felt like if you've ever watched I know how much you love sports ball, but watched a football game and everything's going right and your team still loses because they couldn't take advantage of opportunities that were being presented, fumbles, turnovers, and your team never could capitalize on those things. And that's how I feel about the Republican Party right now, is they fail to capitalize on the other team's mistakes. I mean, Jesus, we have Dr. Oz lost to a potato.
What happened there?
I don't know. That actually flowed down the ticket up there because I think the Democratic governor won pretty big up there. But somebody with Oz's presence, especially with women, with women between 35 and 60 who know him from the doctors, who know him from Oprah. You have all this name recognition. You have he put $25 million of his own money into his campaign.
That's wild. Very David Rubin.
Yeah. So he has all this momentum and he's running against a potato. The guy had a stroke back in March or May, whatever it was. And he can't complete a damn sentence. And you could see it in the debates, so much that Mehmet Oz pulled back. He stopped throwing those haymakers because the other guy couldn't punch back, and he showed a little compassion there. But when you watch the video of that debate, there's no way the people of Pennsylvania watched it. There's just no way. There's no way they watched that potato up there and said, "That's who's getting my vote." Again, I understand skipping the race. I understand a lot of that stuff. You say I don't like Oz and I don't like Fetterman, and skip that race, but that's not what happened. They voted for, just like I was talking about Herschel. Fetterman's not there mentally. He's going to be a rubber stamp for the Democrats. He will vote whichever way he's told to vote.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a cognitive issue there.
But I don't even know what standards we have when it comes to cognitive ability.
We do.
Not according to whitehouse.gov.
That's sad too, though. I mean, it's like we laugh to keep from
crying. It's going to be interesting to see if the Republicans actually do get control of the House, and the numbers, as like I said, we're recording for us late Saturday. The final numbers aren't in to see if the Republicans get to 218, but if they do, who they make the speaker, and what that speaker is going to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who won something like 65% of the votes out here. I mean, it's what even close.
Did you think it would be?
65's a lot. 65-35 is a lot. But no, Marcus Flowers never caught traction out here. He could keep taking pictures, putting his old Army pictures up all he wanted to. It was never. He was never a consideration. So much so that I don't even think Margie debated him. She's like, just do your worst, go for it. His stuff with the ex-wife and dropping her off at a homeless shelter and things like that didn't help.
What?
You didn't hear that story?
No.
He was married to a Russian national.
Who?
And Marcus Flowers, guy who ran against Margie Green.
Is this the marriage that fell apart during his first race?
I think so. And he took her to a women's shelter, opened the door, and said, "If you don't get out, I'm going to call immigration." Is the story. Now, that's her story. It was during divorce. Who knows? But there was a lot of weird things that were accused in that divorce. Like, he accused her of being a working girl. There was some really weird stuff. He wanted to tout being a veteran, but never talked about his military service or what he actually did in the Army. That kind of stuff, which is fine. You don't have to open up we talked about it last week. You don't have to open up your personnel file, your 201 file, and say, here's everything. But at least saying, hey, I was in transportation, I did this. I think he was trying to push this tough guy thing, that he was some sort of super awesome operator and was in transportation or something. And look, transportation is important. It wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. He said, no, I worked at transport, and our job was to get supplies and material from point A to point B, so that the trigger guys have ammo to do what they got to do. That's a very important job, but he never talked about it. So that race was that I fully expected 56, 57, 58%, but the 65 she got, impressive. You're going to have to deal with somebody who's polling 65% of her district.
Right.
You can't just continue to leave her in the penalty box. You're going to have to deal with her.
You think? I mean, why?
Why?
Yeah, like what's the consequence if they don't?
You're leaving a soldier on the field is the problem. They do. They AOC wasn't kicked off any of her. Wasn't kicked off a bunch of her stuff, and AOC says similar crazy stuff that Margie Green does. But even the notice of she and her husband filing for divorce like a month before, which would have been an October surprise in any other race, didn't affect a thing out here. I mean, really, if you took Fetterman and you put a Republican collar on him and ran him out here, got him through the primary, he'd pull 60% too. They don't care. That it was never going to go the other way. But he underperformed. So I think he'll be done for, unless he's got some money in his war chest. So, Geoff Duncan is still whining.
Yeah. He can't help himself. I mean, he really can't. He's going to write a book. He won't leave. But he's out there talking about how, on Twitter and on social media, all his nonsense is how they've got to be talking about policy over people. And he's in the news talking about what could have been and how he doesn't respect Herschel Walker and Trump, and that's what his book's probably going to be about. And it's just quite the circular thought there.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree with the theory that Trump is done. Go build your library. Go show up to state funerals, shake hands with people, write a book, all the stuff that former presidents do. Go and do that. as we've seen with the mixed results around the country, Trump's coattails aren't that wide or that strong. Whether it's with, I mean, Trump, who is beloved here, couldn't pull Walker above 50%. He handpicked Walker and couldn't get him above 50%. And look, I think that Walker is a victim of identity politics. He wasn't picked to run against a black guy for no reason. It's not like he worked his way into it. It's not like he ran a state house or a political appointee somewhere else. He was Trump's golfing buddy and had the biggest name recognition you can have in this state, which is a Heisman Trophy and a national title. The biggest sports star in the state, and Trump couldn't pull him through. So I don't necessarily think that Geoff Duncan's wrong about that. Just shut up.
Well, it's pretty...
Of course it's hypocritical for a guy who ran ads on him being a pitcher, like a minor league pitcher. Of course it is. And his replacement was a football player at Georgia.
Yeah, I don't know when we started giving a damn what these people did in college. Like, that's like saying, well, he was a good guy when he was in high school. He never got suspended or anything. Like, I literally don't care. Just do your job.
Put out your policies and let's debate over the policy. But no, we gotta hear how you were a captain of the Georgia football team, or hear about that you were a pitcher, or in the case of Herschel Walker, a Heisman Trophy winner. Now let me tell you something. If I were Herschel's camp, I would roll around with that Heisman Trophy on the hood of that damn van or of the bus. Just tout that sucker around, because people will come out to see it. I've never met Herschel. I've met one Heisman Trophy winner in my life, and I was talking to him. I said, man, if I had a Heisman Trophy, I would have answered the door with it around my neck. And you know what he didn't want to talk about? Football.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But I don't know. Duncan just, Duncan don't go
correct.
away.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, don't go away mad. Just go away. You made a decision not to run for lieutenant governor again, not because you didn't want the job, because you're unelectable. You didn't want to be defeated.
I wonder what would have happened if we would have. But I wonder who would have stayed, and been interesting to watch all that unfold.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, but there was a lot of dirt that was just under the surface that if he decided to run again, that would have come up and would have been detrimental. A lot of the state funds that went into him flying around on personal business or on vacations and things like that.
Well, and also his ties to the healthcare industry and all that jazz.
Right. Yeah, he didn't
sure
walk away.
He wants to talk about policy and not people, because that'll get him in quite the pickle.
Well, and he handled the press so poorly. I remember the when he got ambushed, which if you're a politician at that level, you know you're getting ambushed. And instead of saying, you know what, I don't have the records in front of me. I travel a lot on state business. You know what, have your producer call so and so in my office, and we'll set up a time and we'll sit down and do this. And that's the way you handle that stuff. You don't just push past reporters in the breezeway between the executive offices and the Capitol. You don't push past reporters. You say, I would be more than happy to discuss anything on my professional record. Let's get together and do that. And that leaves him nowhere to go with it. But he handled it so poorly.
Well, what do you expect from a guy who dodged the press while he was running? He had a handler, just like Herschel.
Yeah. So, Duncan doesn't, as one former athlete to another, he shouldn't use that in politics. I don't know, man. Geoff Duncan's never been my favorite guy. He was a little too slick for me. But there's a reason he didn't run for re-election. There's a reason he stepped aside. Now, if you've stepped aside, shut the hell up and step aside.
Ralston, primary or general election. I knew Geoff Duncan before he thought he was cool, and he was just a state lawmaker who was trying to figure out what he believed. So,
It's a little late at that point. Oh, the days of yore. This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which may work, own, or otherwise associate yourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other episodes and relevant stories over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. Oh, Jesse, we have so many mules.
Do we?
We do. We have so many mules. Duncan. I'm going to put Duncan for the mule of the week, just for those statements of not being politically relevant and trying to get his last jabs as he walks out the door.
I'm going to put the entire state of Nevada.
There you go. For hosting me for a week.
Well, I wasn't even going to go there. I was going to go with that they're still counting, but sure, we.
The other weird races are in Alaska. I was telling you about Sarah Palin is at 26%.
Yeah, I think the voters declared her the mule.
Yeah, but there's two Republicans running for that seat. Two Republicans and a Democrat, and they have ranked choice voting. And as the show drops, they have till Tuesday to get those ranked votes in order to see who actually won. It'll be interesting to see if there was enough of the second choice votes between the two Republicans to overtake the Democrat. It is bizarre that if you are into team politics and you're going to have an R&D, why in the hell would you split your ticket? Because the R's got more than 50%. Because I think the Democrats are only at 48 or 49% last I looked. And Alaska's reporting in at like 71%. I mean, Alaska's a big, vast western state. It may take some time to get all those numbers in. By sled dog, yes, that's exactly how they get there. So. You do have more remote spots that, as you might understand, being sort of don't have Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Paper ballots may have to be brought into Anchorage or Juneau.
Our votes are counted.
And your votes are counted. Yeah, we're at 99.9% until they find some Stacey Abrams votes in the trunk of a car or something. So Ralston is not going to run for speaker again. That was a bomb dropped last week. Is it?
Yeah. He's gonna have to take his ass and sit down in the seats with everybody else. He hasn't voted on a bill other than his mental health bill that he cast a random bill for, and I think a random vote for, and I think he voted for the Transportation Investment Act of 2015. Help raise our taxes. But other than that, he hasn't voted on anything in 13 years.
Yeah, but his war chest is so big. All right, so he's stepping down due to health reasons. I hope he's he's fine. I'd like him to go home, but go home healthy.
Well, I mean, obviously not. It's not something. It's something that will affect him 12 months of the year, but not 3 months. So whatever, dude.
Well, and yeah, well, it may have come up after he qualified and decided not to give the seat to a Democrat. So he's going to step down from the podium. But his war chest is so big. I mean, he could be the shadow speaker. He has so much money. Yeah. He might actually have to go to court, though, now.
too, but John Burns is one of the top contenders, and John Burns' war chest is not far behind.
He's 70 damn years old. And I'm not saying I want somebody in their 20s or 30s in the speaker's chair, because there's a certain amount of experience that goes with getting to 70 and all that, but he's 70 damn years old. We have Barry Fleming, who also is kind of, and I think they're friends. I don't know how much they're going to campaign against each other within the House, but he's 13 years younger. He's also a trial lawyer.
Yeah.
Well,
Ugh.
Some of the
trial lawyer in the Trial Lawyers Association. Look how well that worked out.
Well, it helps to have people who know what legislation is supposed to say. I'm a layman myself, but some of that would be is good to have some lawyers around.
Is it?
To say,
is it? I mean, is it really, Dave? Because, think about it. We make it a lot harder than it has to be. You could say don't kill, and people would be like, I get it. And it would mean the same thing.
Oh, I agree. That's not how laws are written. I don't think any law should be longer than 2 pages.
Right. But, even the wording, you shouldn't have to be a lawyer to understand some of it, and it makes the same sense in some regular words.
Well, and there's other stuff with, like the case you had down there with it's aggravated assault, which people don't understand what that means. That means 10 years in prison or whatever it is for her.
Yeah.
Because the jury was trying to find something, and assault just doesn't sound that bad. Because we don't have an attempted murder in Georgia. That's under felony aggravated assault. So
we have criminal attempt to commit a felony, and then you put the underlying felony. But
right,
yeah.
Alan Powell and Matt Hatchett have already pulled their name from contention.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
It's been interesting. So they're going to vote on this as the show drops, and I don't know. I think that Ralston wants John Burns.
Of course he does. John Burns his knee pads are permanent.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we should be having. Look, for continuity of government, a smooth handoff is good. Whether it's a Democrat coming in or a Republican that he likes or a Republican he doesn't particularly like coming in, you try to have them to this obviously to the Speaker's office and give them the nickel tour and let them know what goes on with the job and all that stuff. A warm handoff will be nice, but I don't know that we want to throw it on another damn 70-year-old.
Here's the problem. We do the speakership wrong. The Speaker's office should be, and we're going to talk about this in a second when we get to the Senate, but the Speaker's job should be focused on assigning committees or bills to committees, having some say in what makes its way to the floor, and deciding who sits on what committees. And instead, our Speaker has spent the last probably 12 years deciding who gets reelected, deciding who is deemed irrelevant. I mean,
well, yeah, he absolutely has been ruling with an iron fist.
And so it's concerning, like I'm sure that people who listen locally and know the Burns family are like, oh my God, I can't believe she said that about the knee pads and everything. But that the reality is like when you have someone who's already on that well-oiled machine, that's not good. Like, I don't like Barry Fleming, but at least Barry Fleming was at odds with some of the people who are in power or, will be in the transition of power, and there's value in that.
There is. I mean, hell, You and I, well, you and I would love to see a speaker Gertler. That would be fun.
Yeah.
To have somebody who actually believes in liberty, sitting at the speaker's lectern. But if he didn't like you, he'd primary your ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, any bill you signed on to was dead on arrival. And that's where I was talking about earlier about sometimes no help is more help. That once you're with Ralston, once you're on the outs with Ralston, if you put your name on that bill, it's dead. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and that's not how it's supposed to be. I understand if as a party you don't want to let Democrat bills make their way. I mean, I don't agree with that either. Like, put the bills forward and see what happens. But like the whole absolute manipulation of how the system works, I mean, it's disgusting and it's not right. It's not how it was ever intended to be. The speaker's far too powerful.
And it's all for personal gain. A lot of it was for personal gain. When he could take $10,000 per defendant and stick it in his pocket and essentially tell them you never have to go to court, it was about personal gain. And he used the speaker's chair for personal gain. It is long time since he should have been gone. Because some of those people that he was defending who never had to go to court did some horrible, horrible things.
They did, but what was the repercussion?
Nothing. They changed the law. It's funny, they changed the law, now he's stepping down. Since I can't do that anymore. Here, take the gavel. All right, so we have power changes in the Georgia Senate.
Butch Miller was the pro tem under Geoff Duncan, and he lost to Burt Jones, so that's created quite the he lost the primary, obviously. But it's gonna be a heck of a shakeup because Burt Jones was a Trumper, big time election denier, so to speak. And then John Kennedy from Macon, he's going to be the pro tem now because the Senate voted on Friday. It's super interesting. I don't know. But personally, I am delighting in it because, Burt Jones is the one, if you remember, all those moons ago, that Geoff Duncan and Butch Miller, they stripped his power and took his committees because they didn't like his position. And he hosed them both.
And you know what? I wouldn't mind if they permanently removed that power from the lieutenant governor's chair. I mean, but you can't do it because I don't like you. Whether it's against Casey Cagle or Mark Taylor or anybody else that's had that done to them, is they tend to strip those powers as needed. Right, as what works out for them at the time. Not saying, no single individual should have all this authority, and we're gonna break that up and divide that power up because no one person should be deciding for the Senate what gets voted on and when. That would be a principled stand, and I'm not seeing that principled stand. And look, I've met Burt. He's nice enough, but they all are when they're running for office.
Do you know what I would do if I were a lieutenant governor?
What?
I would push someone to draft legislation to get rid of the office of the lieutenant governor. We don't need a lieutenant governor. It's duplicative. It used to be just so that you had a running mate for the governor, because they used to be running mates, and they would have a lieutenant governor from the South rural area and a governor from the Atlanta area, or vice versa. But then we did away with that, and then it was a figurehead that was supposed to be like, basically like Miss America. where you just go around and like do good things. It was never supposed to be this like what it is now, and it's just continued to evolve. And Casey Cagle obviously, I think, ruined everybody's perception of what the lieutenant governor should be. And I mean, Geoff Duncan didn't really leave a mark on our hearts. So yeah, we don't need it.
Well, what would you replace it with?
What do I need to replace? The Senate pro tem can do anything that the lieutenant governor is doing. They preside over the Senate.
Well, then there you go. That person is first in line should something happen to the governor.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, look, that's the vice president has kind of gone the opposite way, historically speaking, where the president of the Senate, the VP, was, presided over the Senate every day, and that was his job, was to go sit down and do that. And over time, it has become a show pony. You throw the vice president to places the president doesn't want to go, mm-hmm. So the administration is represented.
Well, I mean, everything that the lieutenant governor does, it's a 6-figure salary for not a lot of return on investment, I guess is what I'm getting at. I mean, and it wasn't really exclusive to Geoff Duncan. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff behind closed doors, but I mean, it really was that person that was supposed to be up front. They were out front. They were supposed to, we didn't have a Georgia Department of Economic Development because the lieutenant governor did all of those things. And as we've grown government and grown the size of appointed officials and favors that our elected officials repay when they're elected, we've taken powers from other duly elected offices. See also the school superintendent, who now has the State Board of Education. That is 14 or 15 unelected, appointed members who make decisions that are often in contrast with Richard Woods. I mean, like, we keep doing this, and then we're like, gosh, I wonder why government sucks.
Yeah. We wonder. Well, you and I don't.
I've never wondered. I've always known. Ever since I was an infant, I've known.
Out of the womb. She's like,
yes. Hello.
Taxation's theft.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I told this story before, but in 3rd grade, I was the only one to vote for Ross Perot. School election.
I miss old Ross Perot.
That came from home. That was burned in my brain.
So, Jess, you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah. So the Libertarian Party of Georgia, even if you're not, a libertarian in I guess voting power or anything else, I would just encourage people to pay attention to what they're doing, because they're, especially here in Georgia, they're doing a lot of really neat things that are just liberty minded, that honestly I don't really understand why we're not all in favor of. But like, they're hosting some events coming up, and one of them is called Smart Home Without the Cloud, and it's basically like how to create your own home surveillance system and control the data and do all the things without connecting to like, obviously, the cloud, like the ring-based things, all the things that Amazon and all the companies are trying to partner behind our backs with law enforcement to just hand over the data automatically when it's your data and things like that. They're also doing like 3D printing stuff and crypto workshops, and just like, even if you don't want to trade it, you should understand what it is, because it's a growing thing, and there's mining facilities in our communities and all different things. But I wasn't paid or asked or even told about these things. I got it in an email, and I just thought it was really interesting that they're going beyond just the political beliefs and kind of like putting their beliefs into practice to show people like how they can live them out every day. And I thought that was really great. So you could go to their website, obviously, if you want to learn more, which is lpgeorgia.com.
Well, that's interesting because most of the things that libertarians talk about, if you sat in a bar room and talked to somebody and say, do you believe in this liberty? Yeah, this liberty. Most people align with the Libertarian Party, but there's a hurdle to get over with libertarian candidates. One is ballot access, of course, and another is you can't keep the crazies out front all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The LP's got some nutcases that are out front. You got Gary Johnson doesn't know where Aleppo is. Like, you probably shouldn't smoke before going on stage.
Right.
Probably a bad idea. And I understand it probably settled your nerves, but you should probably know a little bit about global politics before running for president. But yeah, is running the crazy out without losing the base, and that's the tough thing to do because you've got really smart guys like Shane Hazel, and Shane Hazel is, super smart guy, especially for a Marine. Chase Oliver, I think, is a great spokesman for the Libertarian Party. The way he handles stuff, these are guys who are intelligent, who can express a complete thought without going completely off the rails, and I think the libertarians need more of that.
Yep.
I don't have anything other than it's good to be home, good to have my shower and my bed back. I mean, going back to work is never fun, but I'm going to need it. I need to sell some air conditioners so I can fund the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, on that thought, big thank you to Eric Cumby, our editor. Big thanks to my partners in endeavor, Jessica Salaji. I'm Dave Roberts. Have a good week.
Catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the moon. Trying to catch me howling at the moon. When it rains, it pours. Water's up to my chin. Won't stop.